I love getting the right people on the bus. And I think the frustrating thing as an entrepreneur is like, sometimes the people that you start the game with aren't the people that are going to be, at that next level. And so you have to be able to recognize, people are going to be transient. People are going to come in and out of your organization. It's really, really critical to have the right people on the bus, or, you're going to have a much, much harder time.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I am talking to Rick Meekins. He is the managing partner over at Epiphany, and he has a wealth of knowledge to share about entrepreneurship, not only his experience, but also the experience of all the businesses that he's worked with, all those entrepreneurs. He is helping them achieve the success that they're looking for. And so he knows the pitfalls that one needs to avoid as an entrepreneur for sure. So welcome to the show, Rick. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, Lance, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so Rick, we want to hit right off the start here, running into all of the things that really people need to understand when it comes to entrepreneurship. And so I like to narrow it down to 3 top pieces of advice that you maybe would be able to provide our audience based off of your experience and the experience that you have, working with all the companies that you do already. So what are 3 things every entrepreneur really should know as they're building their companies?
It's really interesting because I like to work with companies after they've gotten, off the ground, just a little bit. They've been around 2, 3, 4 years, and they're looking at, what's next, for their company. And so we always start with the idea, the thinking that you've got to have systems and processes in place in order to run your organization, but in order to scale your organization in a way that's going to make sense. You don't want to lose track of what you're doing on a service level and product delivery level, et cetera, et cetera. You want to keep that same level of service offering as the company begins to grow. Next is, I love getting the right people on the bus. And I think the frustrating thing as an entrepreneur is like, sometimes the people that you start the game with aren't the people that are going to be, at that next level. And so you have to be able to recognize, people are going to be transient. People are going to come in and out of your organization. It's really, really critical to have the right people on the bus, or, you're going to have a much, much harder time. And I love the idea of having a rallying point, your mission, your vision, your values, what you believe in, and really starting from the door, whether you're talking about how you're introducing the company to your clients or how you're introducing it to other people that are going to work with you. If people understand like what you're about and where you're going, you're more likely to get the right people aligned with where you want to go.
Yeah, completely. And this is one of the things that I hear from other people too, who have that experience like you do and working with all the different businesses, is we get in there sometimes working with these clients and it becomes really clear that they don't maybe have the right people on the bus. But a lot of that is driven by not having the clarity in terms of what that vision, mission, and the culture that they want to have, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the interesting thing is like culture's hard, because it's like one thing to have, 1 or 2 people that you're working with and you guys kind of click. But, as the organization starts to expand and you start to hire more people, you've really got to be, I've seen, my opinion is that you've really got to be intentional, about continuing to say, hey, this is what we're about, guys. This is our culture. Let's, try to maintain that. Let's have these conversations about, where we are and what we're doing.
Yeah. It was really interesting because I was at a networking event this morning in which I was talking to another business owner, and this idea of culture or challenge of culture came up. And what they said is that they were realizing they didn't have the right people on the bus within their organization, not completely, like the core group, like they, it's probably that 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the people that were there, part of their team, and it's a sizable team, were really aligned well. But there was, the other 20% that weren't. And that was enough, even if it's 5%, that's enough sometimes to really disrupt the execution, really, and the overall culture of the business. And so what they said is they got really, really intentional about being crystal clear on what their values are, what the mission was, what the vision is for the company, and then how that rolls into every one of the roles within their business. And it took them 4 years actually to get through the kind of the churn of the people. They she said, we didn't fire people outright unless they were really misaligned. We're always trying to nurture them, but they self-selected themselves out of the organization. It took them about 4 years to get to that place where it's like, we have a team now that is 100% aligned. And that was really an interesting insight. It's not easy. It takes time.
It does. It does. I mean, it's definitely a commitment, and you're trying to run your organization and everything else that's that's going to be associated with it. And this is another job, But I mean, as a leader, I mean, this is what we're called to do. This is what we have to do. We've got to be able to lead the way, but we've also got to create this environment, for the people that work with us or work for us, so that they want to be there. If we have a collective, rather than just a business, we have a collective, we're going to go further faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you said, like we're called to do this as the leaders of our organization. And that's really true, right? It's our responsibility. It starts at the top. And if we don't set the right tone, if we don't set the right emphasis, then nobody else in the organization really is going to either. And so it really truly is on us. Now, let's get into Epiphany though. So what products, what services, what problems are you solving, I guess, out there in the marketplace today? And who are your customers?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So my passion has always been around, operations as I talked about. I've met hundreds of business owners that had great products. They had great ideas. They had great, things that they were doing in their businesses, but, they couldn't get beyond, friends and family for their clients. They couldn't really
Yeah.
grow their business to any sort of, sustainable level. And so I started, working with companies and just helping them see differently. First of all, it's like, you don't have to be the guy. You don't have to be the chief bottle washer, and then really looking at, okay, how do we systematize this? Because if we systematize this, we can maintain our quality, et cetera, and we can teach somebody else how to do that job.
Yeah.
And so this is really where our business lies, and it starts, every part of the business really needs to have that, whether you're talking about finance, you're talking about business development, you're talking about, your products and service, managing that, or your HR or your management leadership. These areas must have, these systems and processes in place in order to be able to scale your company.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only just scale it, but I think one thing that we fail to recognize early on when we're building our businesses, and it doesn't really come apparent until we're at a stage in which we're wanting to exit our business and want to sell it, is
Yeah.
if we don't have the systems in place, the value of the business is not nearly as great. We're not going to get the same level of multiple likely than if we have all those systems in place, because that buyer that's coming in wants to understand and wants the assurance basically that the business isn't going to fall apart as soon as you step away from it. And so oftentimes we as owners or the senior leaders within your business often have a lot of institutional knowledge wrapped up in their heads, right? And when they exit, well, then what happens? If it is in a system, if you've got the right processes, everything's documented, and things are running like the well-oiled machine we all want our businesses to have, you have a much more valuable business at the end of the day too.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. We actually have a playbook, that we fall back on. So we're in a meeting, so like, hey, this is how we're going to do it. Put it in the playbook. Put it in the playbook.
Yeah.
And then that allows us to have a point of reference. Just like, what did I say last time? Because I'm half crazy. And then we go to the playbook and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it, and it works really, really well. And then we can take those items and push them into the processes that we use. And this is something I would absolutely recommend for any company.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. And that in itself is a challenging thing, is to document, right? And to build out those playbooks and so on. And I don't know if you've got some tools that you like to share with the audience. There's one that I recently came across, and I believe it's called scribe.io. IO or AI. I can't remember. Anyway, it's really cool because you can just basically in your browser. I don't know if it's every browser. I use Chrome, so it's a Chrome extension. But you basically record your steps as you go through and do something, and you're talking through it as well. But it's recording all of your actions, and then it grabs screen grabs of different aspects of the screen that that you're emphasizing within your step-by-step instructions, and it then builds out a written SOP essentially, and it's just brilliant in terms of being able to document that. Now you're going to have to refine that more probably, but it's a really good starting point, which will save people a lot of time. Do you have any other tools like that you generally recommend for clients?
I haven't used any just because of the re-engineer. So there's two things that I think about me. It's like I'm a tactical person. So I start a process or whatever, and I'm going back, and because I've got the pen in my hand, so to speak, I'm able to go back and make adjustments and really get what I want to get down on paper. Versus just talking it out, and then trust. I get distracted. Doing it that approach. I saw that Lucid actually has like an AI tool built into it where you can use that to design like your workflows.
Oh,
You
interesting.
know, and I thought that was that's pretty cool as well. I know some other software is starting to go in that direction. I think that what is it, Notion? I
Mm-hmm.
think Notion has some an app like that too. One of our vendors actually sent us an instruction book out of Notion. We're just like, okay.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Notion, I've heard a lot about. I've never used it myself, but I'm hearing more and more where they've really, really doubled down on the AI capabilities within their tool in a lot of different ways. And so, yeah, maybe something our audience should take a look at as well. So, beyond the wanting to help other businesses, grow and thrive, what else inspired you to, jump into the world of entrepreneurship? Because you've been at this now for quite a while, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I'm laughing because like I have this thing from like second grade where my teacher would never put my pictures on the bulletin board, like with all the nice pictures, and it's just like um, she gave me the distinct impression that I don't color inside the lines. And I think that kind of carried throughout the rest of my life. It's just like, I want to do something different. I want to do, my way. I want to chart my own course. So I think that has a lot to do with it. It's like the way that I see the world. I want to solve, this particular problem, and I want to make sure I can put
Yeah,
my hands on it. And I feel like I
yeah,
can.
yeah. That's really cool. I like the story too because this is one of the things about entrepreneurs. Uh, we generally do not make good employees. We do want to be off
There is
doing our own thing, right? And
that.
inventing, creating, and whatever else. Yeah. So in terms of your journey thus far. So you've been at this game for a while, and you have obviously had success. There's probably been moments in which you have had struggles as well. What would you say would have been one of those moments where you go, geez, I really wish I could have redone that. Knowing what I know now, I wish I could go back in time and maybe play that out a little bit differently. Is there something like that that comes to mind at all? And what would you do differently, I guess, at this point?
That's interesting. I'm sitting here. I'm going through like all these different. I've been doing this business for 19 years now, and it's just like
Yeah.
um, there are a lot of things that I think. I guess I'm of two thoughts. One piece of that is had I not gone through these experiences, I wouldn't have this knowledge, and I really
Yeah.
feel like a lot of those experiences that I've had have really poured in, enabled me to pour into and relate to, the business owners because, it is what we do is tough. You know what I mean? It's like going out, fishing every day, regardless of the weather, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You're going out and you're doing this. I think that if I were to, I think I would put more effort into people.
Mm,
I grew up. playing sports, and the people that I played with were very good players. And so I kind of took that for granted. I go in, I do my job, everybody does their job and everybody's good at that, and then, when I apply that to business, it doesn't always work that way. Not everybody has had, the same agenda. Not everybody had the same skills. Not everybody had the same motivation, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that if I had taken more time to really invest in finding the right people, then I think that really could have made some differences in a lot of the things that we do. Yeah. I've invested in people, I've put the energy and that sort of thing into it. But I mean, it's that old, you can take a horse to water, but if they're not willing to drink, it's just like, dude, the water's right there. But you can't make them do it, right?
Yeah. Another entrepreneur that I've interviewed in the past, he was saying there's just, there's a fallacy in terms of trying to hire, affordable, I guess you could say, talent versus top-notch talent. Because that top-notch talent is going to really yield so much greater returns and really change potentially the trajectory of your business, right? And I really loved what another gentleman said too, and he was talking about in that hiring process, don't hire for the person to fill the job of today. So, for instance, if you're hiring a controller for your business, don't hire somebody and say your business is a $2 million business right now. Don't hire a controller with experience controlling, the financial side of things in a $2 million business. Hire a controller that has the experience to control a company at whatever your goal is. So a $10 million company, because you're not going to get there with the talent who are only good enough to be, or have only had the experience to be at the place in which you're currently at. And so I thought, yeah, that's really smart, because I don't really think about that in my hiring. I often think about the task at hand and where we're at today and the issues that we're facing today. And it's just that forward thinking aspect. Would you agree with that assessment?
100%. I mean, that's like, dressing for the job that you want.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, it's kind of scary because it's an investment. Like you said, you're paying a little bit more, with the expectation of getting a little bit more, but, it's still this, okay, I haven't done this. I haven't been down this road before, the first time you're doing this. And it's like, there's nothing guaranteeing, that we're going to hit that $10 million mark. Yep. But, again, we wouldn't have gotten up to be entrepreneurs if we weren't willing to take a risk. And we just have to kind of look at that in the face, understand the risk, understand the reward, and then, take the appropriate steps.
100%. So in terms of, your business at the stage in which it's at, you've been at this for 18 plus years. What's easier today that was more difficult in the past, in earlier stages? So what's gotten easier for you?
I feel like on one hand, I always challenge myself. Hey, let's go a little bit better, a little bit deeper. Let's, enhance that. But I think that I have finally learned to just put stuff out there, and I mean that from the perspective that we want to, we want to launch a new newsletter, for example. Okay. I could spend a month, and I've done this, I spent a year once, perfecting my website. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just like, it's like, I wanted it to be everything, thinking through all the customer experiences, et cetera, and it took a year. I wanted to launch a new newsletter, and we took 2 months to do it, maybe.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's not perfect. But we took the newsletter and we went through the whole thing top to bottom. It's like, we're going to do this differently, this differently, this differently, this differently. One thing Colin Powell said that I really, 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 really valued is like, get it 80%. Yeah. That other 20% is just not, it's not worth drilling down. You're not going to get that much. The results you're going to get is not going to be that much better, and so that's been my thing. It's like what we've done is like, 80%, okay, and then let's try for better results, as over time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great piece of advice. And I think just in very recent history, in terms of a company that has learned that lesson the hard way is Google, right? With their AI. They were holding back, trying to perfect this. And then you have OpenAI comes along and they're trying to grab market share. And they just release, 2 years ago almost, they release chat gpt uh, to everybody to play around with, and it's not perfect. It's hallucinating like crazy, but it's still, they were able to just completely disrupt the marketplace because they weren't waiting for it to get to 100%. And so they were much more nimble, much more willing to let it make the mistakes. And Google was really caught flat footed, even though, they really are the forefathers of a lot of the AI technology that even OpenAI is leveraging. And so, yeah, it's a really good example, I think, of what you just said. So, in terms of inspiration, right? You've been at this for 18 years, and like there's some long days, some lonely days as well as an entrepreneur, and definitely some days in which I know I have anyway. It might be different for you, where I've thought, geez, I don't know if this is worth it. I don't know why I keep banging my head against this, or why I keep getting up after getting knocked down time and time again. Um, and so for you, I'm curious what inspires you to just continue on this journey.
I I would be surprised if there were people out there that didn't at some point bang their head on the desk and say, "What am I doing?" I think for me, I think it's there are several different things that I look at. My mission and vision. I definitely want to make that impact on the world. I definitely want to, create a million jobs. I definitely want to improve business owners' ability to stay in business. And it's for me, it's responsibility. But bringing that back home, there's a responsibility I have to my team.
Hmm.
And because I mean, the coolest thing about having done this for as long as I've done this is, I've helped send kids to college, which is just like this is huge. I've vouched for people's loans, and I've vouched for people, moving in different countries and stuff like that. And it's really been amazing, the opportunity and the reach I've had, and all that kind of goes away, if I decide that, I want to give up. The cool thing though about being my own boss or being an entrepreneur is I do get to pivot,
Yeah.
so as I get more interested in different things. So, like right now, I'm more interested in educating, so doing podcasts and writing and that sort of thing. It's been a pivot from, what we were doing, a few years ago, which was more hands-on strategy, engineering, and that sort of thing. And so,
Hmm.
um, I think that that's been a really, really important realization. I don't have to stay on the same track, and I can love what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And this is the thing about it, right? Is we all as entrepreneurs find different things that inspire us to just keep on going. And so I'm always fascinated by what inspires each individual. Um, if you could, think in, to reflect on all the different entrepreneurs that you've worked with over the years, what do you think, besides, some of the things that we talked about, really nailing their vision and their mission, and really making sure they have the right people, and that they're managing them properly, and so on? What do you think would be some distinguishing features or aspects of a great entrepreneur versus a struggling entrepreneur? Is there any common threads there that have popped out as you've been talking to and working with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think the ability to be flexible. I
Mm,
mean, the market changes, economy changes, technology changes, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've got to, we have to be flexible within the area that we want to serve. We can't let pride lead. We can't
mm,
build the build the arena and just expect people to show up. We've got to be able to look at what's happening and then pivot. Right. I think the other thing that I really value or admire is, the resilience, because you get knocked down. You get knocked down, you get back up. You might look at things differently. You've got to learn, you've got to grow, but you keep going. And sometimes you're taking that long view, just like, okay, by the end of this year, I'm going to X, Y, Z. But sometimes you're like, hey, by the end of this day, I'm going to get ABC done. And you have to be able to look at things like that, because if the firmer you are, my opinion, the firmer you are, the less agile you're going to be, the harder time you're going to have, because things are the thing that is constant is that things always change.
Yeah. 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 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I mean, there is, no other word, I don't think, that's more associated with entrepreneurship than resiliency, right? It truly is. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm also curious in terms of, you work with these businesses who have growth goals. They have a desire to grow their business, to improve their processes, to generate better results, for them as well as their clients and the people that are working for their business. You undoubtedly have your own goals that you have. So if you could give a little bit of a peek into the Epiphany 12-month goal, or goals that you might have. What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge in achieving that goal? And how do you think you're going to overcome that?
The it's interesting because as I kind of alluded to before, I've reached a point in my career where there are certain things. I'm 53, and it's just like there are certain things I just don't want to do anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And so, divesting of those things, while still continuing to provide the services, that we provide excuse me, the service that I want to provide is really my goal. So at the end of the year, my expectation is that um, I'm really in that space, that I'm fully engaged. I want to do the teaching and the training, and I want to, help companies lead their organizations. I don't want to do as much hands-on work. I have enjoyed leading my teams, but I think that, I think that, I'm reaching a point where it's just like, okay, let's develop and release, if you will,
yeah,
you know, rather than, trying to build the biggest, like we had, a pretty big team, like right before COVID. And it was like, that was awesome. But, that was the thing, that's history, and I'm good with that.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. I think us as entrepreneurs, at least I definitely embody this, so I can fully admit that I work too much in my business and not enough on my business, and I'm doing tasks that I really should have somebody else uh, executing on, uh, and because there's some things that just do not bring me joy that I'm doing, and and that has changed. In previous years, it might have given me more joy, some of those tasks, and so um, but I'm beyond that now. I'm whether it's I'm bored of it or just not challenged by it or whatever. And so I think that's a really good lesson in terms of, okay, so what do you get jazzed up about as the owner? You have that flexibility to try to engineer the team to take on all the other things and then let you really excel at the things that you just really absolutely love, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm 100% committed to that.
So Rick, as entrepreneurs, especially somebody as seasoned as you, so you've been doing this for 18 years. If you had the ability to send a letter back to your younger entrepreneurial self, so Rick of 18 years ago, what would you put in that letter? What would you tell yourself?
I think there's a warning that, things don't always go, as the
Mhm.
dreamers. I bought into the dreams like, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. At some point I'm going to, what they say, sit by my pool and, and do the work. And, the money was always going to come in, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, and the reality is just so much different. It is,
Mhm.
every day it's like getting up and doing it. When you're not doing it, you're thinking about it. It's like, how could I,
Yeah.
find another client? How could I take care of this client? Oh, is this client going to fire me? Is this, this and that and this and that, and it's definitely a commitment, and it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's definitely a choice.
Yeah.
One of the books I think we talked about before. One of the books that I always recommend to new entrepreneurs is a book called "The Hard Thing About Hard Things."
Yeah.
And the author really goes into. He's talking about very very large software company, but he's going into the challenges that he's going through, and he's got like there's emotion and that sort of thing. And the thing about it is, and the thing that I say to people all the time is, it's like, I can't remember the comedian's name, but, did you die? No,
Mm.
just get up and keep going. You're going to make it through. You're going to make it through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I guess really speaks to some of the other things have already talked about, right? The resilience. It talks about that, yeah, every business, there are moments that it's going to be, you're gonna feel like this isn't maybe worth it, and it's really difficult to see the light at the end of that tunnel. But I do like the way that you frame that in terms of telling yourself that it's going to be difficult. The dream is there, but it's not going to necessarily be that straight line to the dream, right? It goes in a very meandering path.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
your business today is probably very different, looking in a lot of ways than what it was when you first started 18 years ago, right?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. We went through what, at least two recessions and a
Yeah,
pandemic.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
totally, right.
yeah.
And
Things got absolutely horrible. Okay. I'm not going to lie.
yeah, yeah, and it's just amazing that we're still standing, right? Like it truly is. It is really quite incredible. So, if somebody wanted to learn more about Epiphany or about you, where should we direct them?
If you go to coffeeandaconsult.com, that'll take you to the website. That'll take you to a forum where we can just, just hang out and have a conversation. I'm not going to be a person that says, hey, you know what, come have a consultation. I'm going to trick you into, signing a contract. I'm not that guy. We can sit down and just have a conversation. That's probably going to be the easiest way to reach me.
Yeah, so that's coffee and a conversation. Is that what you said? And a
Coffeeandaconsult.com. Yeah.
consult.com. Okay. Coffeeandaconsult.com. And yeah, I can definitely vouch for your authenticity when you say that you're here just to have a conversation, to help other entrepreneurs and so on. You lead from that perspective of wanting to help people. And that's something that I align with very closely. And so I appreciate that you invite other people into your world that way. It's really good on you.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think it's a mission. I really want to make that difference in the lives of, especially entrepreneurs. I never, the statistics. There were, so many statistics. Hey,
Yeah.
10%, 10% of businesses make 4% of businesses, actually make beyond that 10-year mark, and I want to make a difference. I want people to be able to, have some somewhat stable lives.
Yeah, completely. I'm aligned there, and everybody who listens to this show will have heard my rants about if we have a vibrant, strong business community, we then have very vibrant and strong communities in general, and that's what we want to create. We want to make it a better place for everybody, right?
Yep, yep, absolutely, absolutely. Well said.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your experience, your advice as well, Rick. This has been a great interview, and I'm sure our audience is going to take a lot out of this. And so for those of you who are listening today and you love this episode, you want to check out some other entrepreneur stories, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca, and that'll take you right to their archive of podcasts, as well as some written stories too about entrepreneurs. And if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever, or on our website, but you prefer the audio only version so you can be out running or doing whatever activity you want to be doing and still be learning some stuff about entrepreneurship, then just search Amplify Your Business on your favorite podcasting platform and you're sure to find us. Until next time, everybody have a prosperous day.